The war in Ukraine has become a brutal symphony of attrition, where the tempo is set not by sweeping infantry charges, but by the methodical, devastating rhythm of artillery. In this gruesome contest, the side that can fire more shells, for longer, often holds the advantage. This is why ammunition depots have become some of the most prized and heavily guarded targets on the modern battlefield. So, when footage emerges of a Ukrainian strike on a major Russian ammunition depot, a blinding flash, followed by a series of secondary explosions that light up the night sky and send a series of thunderclaps rolling across the landscape, it is more than just a spectacular explosion. It is a strategic event. The initial strike is the headline, but it is merely the first note in a complex cascade of consequences. The real story begins in the aftermath, as the ripple effects of that single, successful strike spread through the Russian war machine, dictating the course of the conflict for days and weeks to come. The immediate aftermath. A cascade of secondary explosions. The first and most visceral that happens is the fireworks display itself. A modern ammunition depot is not a singular stockpile but a vast, carefully organized network of storage bunkers, warehouses, and open-air stockpiles. A precision strike, often carried out by a long-range drone or a Storm Shadow/Scalp cruise missile, doesn't just hit one crate of shells. It targets the heart of the complex, a central storage unit or, ideally, an area where explosives are being actively handled. The initial detonation is the trigger for a chain reaction. Secondary explosions begin ripping through the site, often for hours, sometimes for days. These are not controlled detonations. They are chaotic and violent. The sheer kinetic energy unleashed shreds everything in the immediate vicinity. Storage facilities are vaporized, loading equipment is twisted into unrecognizable scrap metal, and any personnel unfortunate enough to be on site are lost. The massive column of smoke and debris, visible for miles, becomes a symbol of Ukrainian capability and Russian vulnerability. Beyond the visual spectacle, this immediate destruction represents a staggering logistical loss. In one evening, thousands of artillery shells, hundreds of rocket propellants, scores of tank rounds, and potentially even stored missiles or specialized equipment are turned from instruments of war into a smoldering crater. This is not just a number on a spreadsheet. It is a tangible reduction in the volume of fire Russian batteries can sustain on the front lines. The logistical domino effect. From depot to front line. The second, and arguably more significant, this is the logistical nightmare that instantly descends upon the Russian military district supplied by that depot. A major depot is not just a warehouse. It is a crucial node in a complex supply network. Its destruction forces an entire logistical system to screech to a halt and reconfigure itself under duress. The silence of the guns. The most immediate effect felt by Russian infantry and armored units is a sudden and alarming reduction in artillery support. Batteries that were firing dozens of shells per hour are suddenly put on strict rationing. A commander planning an assault or needing suppressing fire to extricate a pinned-down unit finds his requests denied. This shell hunger creates windows of opportunity for Ukrainian forces. They can move their own troops more freely, reinforce positions, or even launch counterattacks, knowing that the once constant Russian barrage has been muted. The psychological impact on Russian troops is profound. The comforting roar of their own big guns, a constant presence on the front line, falls silent. The scramble for alternatives. With the primary depot gone, Russian logisticians must now reroute supplies. This means trucks that had a predictable 50-kilometer journey to the front now must travel 150 or 200 kilometers from a depot further in the rear. This stretches fuel supplies, wears out vehicles faster, and creates massive traffic jams on alternative routes, which themselves become juicy targets for Ukrainian partisans or further long-range strikes. The entire supply chain becomes less efficient, more vulnerable, and exponentially more expensive to maintain. The strain on railway networks. Russia's war effort is heavily dependent on its vast railway network, RZHD. Ammo depots are almost always located near key rail lines for this reason. Destroying a depot often forces a rerouting of entire trainloads of munitions. This creates bottlenecks at rail hubs and transfer points, which are also high-value targets. Ukraine's targeting of rail infrastructure in tandem with depots compounds this crisis, effectively creating a logistical stranglehold. The tactical recalibration, forcing a Russian rethink. The third, is the forced change in Russian tactical behavior. A military is an adaptive organism, and such a significant blow forces immediate and often disadvantageous adaptations. Dispersal is a double-edged sword. Learning from these strikes, Russian command will order the further dispersal of remaining supplies. Instead of a few large, well-defended depots, they will create dozens of smaller, hidden caches. While this makes them harder for Ukraine to target in a single blow, it cripples efficiency. Distributing shells to artillery units now requires more trips to more locations, burning more fuel and time. It fractures the logistical flow, making it harder to mass fires for a major offensive. It is a defensive move that acknowledges vulnerability and sacrifices offensive potential for survival.